2020. Then our next meeting, we will do the 5-year capital plans. And then our goal is to have first reading in November for the first one, but we're going to have a meeting that actually takes the budget for 2021, and we're not going to do it in one meeting because we never have, because there's usually a lot of questions, and we ask the department heads individually to be there so they can discuss their department, that they're the ones who put together the numbers, like Mr. Nadovich puts together what he needs and provides it to Mr. Bears, who then can financially check to see yay, nay, or get enough. I don't know what that is. So once we're finished with the budget part of this, we will be going then into the work session because we do have several, unlike last time, we have numerous pieces of legislation here. So we want to make sure that we do not shorten the time frame that we need for any of that discussion. And within that, of course, the first ordinance will be one that Mr. Bears talks about in our status of 2020 will be, what do I need to change? We know we're used to seeing that. For those of you that it's your first terms, we're used to seeing this. We usually try to do it every quarter because we want to be able to go into the end of the year with a good understanding of where we're at, what we need, and is there good news or bad news. I've been in council through the recession when it was never good news, so it's kind of nice to see better news, but then we go into COVID, so what the heck, we can't win this year. So Mr. Veras, with that, I'm going to turn it to you. So if everyone wants to turn into their books, I would say hymnal, but that might be offensive, to this page and take it away. I'm going to mute myself so I don't accidentally sneeze in your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Jandy, you want?
If you're not speaking, you might want to mute. That's what's causing that echo.
Okay. All right. Looks like everybody's muted. All right. So the RETA collections, actual collections through October, starts out with last year's numbers, 2019, January through December. And then, so that front section is a 2.25%, and then the bottom section is the safety service fund that went into effect last year. That's why there's no collections in January and very few in February of last year, because of the timing of companies making their payments for January and February activity. So, we were starting out the year pretty good. January was up almost 16% for the upper half there. It was up infinity for the safety service fund. Up 14% in February, up top there for the 2.25%. And then up 2,800% for the safety service fund in February. March, we were a little down for 2.25%, 4% down, and then safety service fund was up again. And then, near the end of March is when we all came together in council caucus, and that's when the word of COVID and the pandemic hit. The deadline was extended from April 15th to August 15th for, was it August 15th or July 15th? I think July 15th for RETA's filing. So, the incentives, that the stimulus money that the federal government was going to give out and how often they were going to give it out and what we were getting was very unknown back in March, April, May. Businesses were closing, sending part-timers home, and you all know the story. So you see May's collections were down 36%, June down almost 45%, and then July down 32%. The Safety Service Fund wasn't hit as bad because it was going against probably newer numbers the year before. June was down, July was down, and May was only up 4% based, compared to the large increases the 4 months before. August so we're hitting negative through July, those 3 months there. And then all of a sudden, a shock. I mean, we were really shocked that August was as high as it was for both the upper section and the lower section here. And I don't know if it's because, well, I know part of it is because of the extension of the deadline, but also during those months, stimulus money was sent out to companies, employers were getting money to pay their employees, and I think that was reflective in their filings, because they eventually have to show that the withholding went back into place, because they were getting money from the government to pay people. Not every business opened up, but we were pleasantly surprised at the results for August, even September and October of this year. But back in March, who knew what was going to happen? So we were projecting being down 50% for July, for August and September, and down 25% for the last quarter. Now, as it turns out, October we were up 32% for the 2.25%, and we were up 43% for the Safety Service Fund. So, I mean, I'm still being conservative and keeping the estimate low, for November, December. But trending, I'm guessing we should at least collect what we collected last year in those 2 months. So if you add up actual to date of collections from RETA, the 2.25% is still slightly down, 144,771, 1.52% down, but the Safety Service Fund is up 535,962, 58.53%. Again, part of that is you're going against 11 months of collection, or 9 through October, and February was hardly anything last year. March and April, people were, because some companies file quarterly for their withholding, so that gets paid RETA in April and shows up in May collections. So overall, this is without any stimulus money. If you look down on the right-hand side, there's 2 columns: all funds RETA 2019, all funds RETA 2020. Overall, we're up 391,191, 3.74% for the first 10 months of the year. So my plan would be to have an amendment for next meeting, which increases the estimated revenue for municipal income tax. Our meeting's November 12th, I believe. So we'll have the advance collection from RETA give me a good good feel for how much I could bring back. I think right now we took, I think it was almost 3 million out. And you could see down below what we did to the budget, what changes we made back at the beginning of April, reduction of full-time wages, hiring freeze. We were proposing no increase in wages because, we were projected to be down over $2.5 million in revenue. Part-timers, no annual increase was proposed, and a layoff of part-timers, that was going to be a savings of $250,000. The full-time wages, the hiring freeze, reduction to 32 hours for some people was going to save about $700,000. We canceled the transfer of $50,000 from the general fund to retirement reserve. We reduced the transfer to the Family Rec Center, $135,000. We reduced the capital improvement transfer, which was going to be the parking lot at the rec center, $350,000. We reduced the road program transfer by $105,000. And then we were put some money away for a future service garage. And we reduced that transfer by $465,000. We increased the refund program just to make sure we had enough money for people to give money back. And that deadline just passed last week. So we also reduced the remodeling budget for the Family Rec Center, payroll reduction of $135,000. We delayed some service department purchases. We deferred them to next year. Same thing with the fire department. Again, I mentioned the $350,000 removal of the parking lot resurfacing. Push that back. That was basically all the savings and proposed ways to hold on to some of our losses are all right there. Now, here we stand 10 months in, 10 and a half months in, and we're almost $400,000 up overall from RETA collections. And that's not including the 1.1 million that we received in 4 separate stimulus checks. At the time, back in March, April, we didn't know if we were going to get any money, let alone 4 separate pieces. That does not include the workers' comp refund of $142,000. And I think we're getting another check by the end of the month or early November. I don't know how much that one's going to be, but I'm hearing it might be around the same dollar amount. So it's not as bad of a picture as we thought it was going to be. And still, the virus is out there. They're talking about potential double pandemic with the flu and the virus in the winter months. And I don't know, I don't like predicting the future, especially with somebody else's money. So I will plan to continue to be conservative with my approach. I'm open for questions. Anybody have questions, comments?
I have a question about the money that we wanted to spend on municipal property. Sorry.
The municipal property?
Yeah. Can you mute Jan? Okay. So the municipal property money, that's something that we can always play with. Like, if we put it away towards municipal property and something like this happens, where we need to come up with $400,000, is that something that we can then reappropriate
Well, the auditors look at transfers as a one-way street.
Hmm.
So once you move it to municipal property, you can maybe change the purpose of what you were going to use it for, but they don't like money going back. An advance would be a different way to lend that fund money. If you decide that, you know, it might not be used, then you send it back. But transfers are usually a one-way street.
That's like what we did. All of this money here, like we had appropriated it for other stuff, municipal property, and then I'm also looking at the parking lot pavement. Those are two huge chunks. So we weren't really out that money. So we put it away. We didn't have it spent yet, and we were able to pull it back in by just unappropriating it.
No, we budgeted for the transfers, but we never made the transfers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we were able to reduce the transfers prior to sending that money to those funds.
Okay. That's all.
So with that being said, that money is available because it was never transferred.
Yeah, we wanted to keep the money in the general fund for the potential. We were projecting the general fund to be down 2.3 million back in March, April.
And the general fund is down by how much?
Well, a portion, 78% of the 144,000, that's RETA collection, but I think we made up for that in the workers' comp refund. So I would say the general fund's about even right now. So through the first 10 months.
So if I look at the general fund, it's 1.52% down as of October. I don't count the bottom because that's specific accounts used for specific things, and what funds are day to day is out of the top.
Yeah, if you look in the middle, Jan, where I'm projecting the year-end totals of collection for the general fund, I'm projecting it to be down 424,000, but that's with November and December being down 25%.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other four funds, that top portion gets divided amongst, refund program will be down about 12,000, Parks and Rec 20,000, Family Rec 20,000, and Road Program 70,000.
Okay. Ask you a quick question about the road program. Mm-hmm. What is our monthly debt versus how much we're taking in or we set aside for? My worry is at some point we keep taking debt, and that's one of the things we'd stopped doing for a while. So I have a debt payment, but I only have so much income. At what point is it equal?
I don't think we added any road debt this year. We pay out of the road program $674,000 from that $9 million that was borrowed in 2018, and then two payments for OPWC projects, Ledge Road and Valley View, total about $69,000. So that's $750,000, say, ish, at the upper end. And we're bringing in, where's the road program? We're projected to bring in 1.3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my concern is at some point they're going to equal. Because, we made that fund specifically for roads, and we're doing roads, which is what we promised, but we got to be cautious.
Right. No, I see. I know what you mean.
Yep. Especially since right now there is no timeline for this pandemic. They're thinking the surge is going to hit again in January. So,
Right.
And they don't know when they'll have a vaccine. So we're all and we're not first on the list for the vaccine. Police and fire, nurses, there first. Then comes old people with underlying things, but I don't want to volunteer for that one either.
Oh, Brian should be happy. He meets two of those.
Did you notice he didn't answer? Yeah. Anyone else have questions? This is where we're at today. Anyone?
Yeah, just a real quick question. John, could you repeat for me what you said was the anticipated amount going out for that loan? I caught the 1.3 projected. I didn't write it down quick enough.
It is $750,000 combined with the OPWC payments that we have for Ledge Road and Valley View and the debt for the $9 million borrowed in 2018.
So is that every year?
Every year, yeah.
And for how long is that going to continue to go on? You told me this a long time ago, but I don't have it.
No, actually, if you have the 3-page spreadsheet, Jeff, for the budget.
I do, but I'm looking at them as attachments. So I don't have it open, but I can bring it up.
For future reference, it's in the right-hand column in the road program.
Oh, all right. I'll bring that up.
I put the years that those debts expire.
Okay.
So the road program debt expires in 2038.
Okay.
And Valley View is the same. And Ledge Road is 2048.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Finley, any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Mr. Ventura?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Brandt. Any others?
No. Just to be clear, and I'm going to feel silly asking this, but is this the first year for the 0.25% for the fire and safety fund?
No, 2019 was for the Safety Service Fund.
So 2019 was a full year for the 2.25%. So that's comparing apples to apples, 2019 to 2020 for the 2.25%?
Correct.
Okay. Because I was wondering, I was getting confused at how the actual receipts were doing better for a percentage of the same total
Right.
for safety and service versus the other one, but that makes sense if it's a higher number than or a higher percentage than it would have been last year. So I got it.
I mean, we're talking 2020 right now, but keep in mind the levy renewal brings in $650,000 a year, so that's all general fund money.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Any comments, Mayor?
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple things that we're going to have some costs that are going to be incurred in the future. So some things we need to be cognizant of is we are still in contract negotiations. We know that those are 3-year contracts. We are heading towards fact finding with that. If any of you are not familiar with fact finding, that kind of changes the whole game of where you're at in the negotiations, and they can kind of dictate what's going to happen and what you're determined to be able to provide for your employees. So that's one thing I wanted to touch on. We also pulled back a lot of projects, which is why you're seeing these numbers jump up. A big thing that I was working on prior to the pandemic hitting was our service building that we've talked about in the past. That is a growing problem that we're going to need to address again. With the brighter outlook, it's nice to think about that and talk about that, but I don't know where that's going to stand because I want to kind of wait and see what happens in November, December, and then early in 21, because I'm pretty sure every council member here took a tour of our service buildings, and if you haven't, I would strongly encourage you to. We are at a point where we have to do something, or we're going to dump a lot of money into buildings that really don't deserve money being put into them. So that issue's been lingering for many years, and it's coming to a head now. So we're going to have to address that sometime in the near future. So I want to put that back on all of your minds to understand that project, when we were beginning to talk with an engineering firm about it, you're looking anywhere between $3 and $7 million. And The big thing that you have to remember with that too is we want to park our equipment inside. Some things that we fail on and we failed on in the past is we leave equipment outside, which is why we're seeing some theft of our equipment. It's also why a lot of our equipment's rotting out. It's why it's failing. If you can park things inside, it's only going to do more to extend the life of it. You know, when we started buying different trucks for the service department, we started spraying the frames, something we've never done before because this is Ohio and what happens with salt and frames in Ohio. And these guys are out there at the time at the height when you're going to see salt and things like that. So everything we're doing is for sustainability to make these things last longer. That building will be huge in that respect. So that's another thing we're going to be working on. And again, don't forget all the things that John touched on that we hadn't done this year because we were taking everything with an abundance of caution. So we have a lot of projects outstanding. The road program, we still have a lot of roads to go. And I respect what Mrs. Tully's saying about the debt. And maybe if the outlook continues to be bright, maybe we can start to beat down that debt. And that's actually not a bad idea to get that paid up early. But we still have quite a few roads to pave. There's a lot on there. There's a lot of calls I get about people and wanting their roads paved. And, you know, they're only going to deteriorate more, the ones that are in disrepair. So keep that on your mind as well.
But don't forget, Jan, we are paying cash now for roads going forward, right? Everything is within our projected income when it's budgeted out for the road projects every year. So we're not adding to that road debt every year. It's a predictable amount of road debt, and we're paying cash.
That is the goal, is that we do not incur any more debt, or it's going to be equal and we're going to be in trouble, which is what happened. If we go into a recession, now the projection is from the feds, that's not going to happen next year, but it's still potential on the outlook in 2 years. So we got to really err on caution. The service garage, we got to wait to see what goes on with the pandemic. A lot of people still aren't working. There are jobs out there, but there aren't a lot of people going for those jobs because they're more lower paid, shall we say.
So and correct me if this isn't even a possibility, but if the road fund starts to bring in less revenue than the liability for the loans, we have to start finding other funds to take that out of to make up the difference?
Well, we have a lot of the money for the payments for the initial roads we did. We have a small allotment for the roads that we're going to do moving forward. And I'll give you one example. So Iroquois needs to be paved. That will be more than what we allot for an entire year. And that's one road that we can get done potentially next year. And it's continuing to decline. So that's something that we're looking at as well. And just to touch on the service garage one more time, we're trending towards a safety issue. And I'm not going to get into the explicit details of what the day-to-day operation experience is, but Mr. Nadovich, I'm sure, will nod his head when I tell you that we're close to having a major safety issue. And we're trying to do everything we can to live with what we have for the time being. And we're going to continue to do that. But I wanted to put it on your minds to know that that's an issue that's going to be forthcoming, and we're going to have to deal with it in the near future.
Well, we'll talk more about that in the capital when we have our capital discussion. But to throw out 3 to 7 million, we don't have that to even talk about. We only have $500,000 emergency fund that we have all said we wouldn't touch unless it was a true emergency. So, Mr. Veras, if you could keep that on the forefront, Mr. Nadovich, for when we get into capital, along with your trucks, along with your salt, along with your snow plows, along with, all those other things that you talk about every year, because Greg got his snow plow. He's good for at least 5 years. I'm not buying another one. Any other questions for this budget? If not, Mr. Veras, do you want to talk very briefly about 62? And then we will have to take a break because the work session doesn't start till 7. So we really can't start until the public would be coming in at 7.
Okay, 62 is the amendment, right?
Right, for the expenses this year.
Yeah, and I adjusted some resources. So we have a minimum that we have to buy for salt based upon our contract. So the deadline for buying that was pushed back, right, John?
Yes, it was. By the end of the year.
Right. So, we were able to put this off for a while, see how collections were coming in, and see where we could get money for buying this additional salt. So our state highway fund, Fund 202, we were able to propose an increase in the estimated resources of $15,000. The motor vehicle license tax fund, Fund 212. I'm reading from my memo in case anybody is wondering. We added $5,000 based on collections to date. So there's $20,000 there that we were able to increase in those two funds. Because of the $15,000 increase to Fund 202, we were able to add $35,000 for salt contract purchases. And I think that'll be enough to meet our requirement. Right, John? Shake your head. So, I also added, like I said, this ends up being the fourth source of CARES Act money from Senate Bill 357. So I added $432,429 to the local coronavirus relief fund, Fund 264. And the most recent bond refunding of the 2010 bond series, you have to show the money coming in and money going out, because what you're doing is you're paying off the old bonds and you're putting money in escrow and then you're borrowing new money. So you just have to show that going in and out. So I had to put that into both sides of the equation. And the same for the aerial tower refunding that's on the agenda tonight. The 1.185 million going in and out.
Yeah, let's hold off on all those till the public meeting.
Okay.
I only wanted this one because this is what we're talking about, was the 2020. Let's wait for the rest because we really can't talk. The entire agenda shouldn't be discussed till the public joins, which was announced for 7.
No, this is just
otherwise you're going to have to say it all over again.
Yeah, this is a part of the appropriation increase, so it's part of 62. So talking about appropriations that we're increasing, I already mentioned the $35,000 for assault in the state highway fund. The water M&E fund 210, we've had a lot of water hydrant repairs or fire hydrant repairs, as Chief Ripley likes to refer to them as. Water comes out of it, not fire, so I don't know. I like water hydrant better. So we had to add 50,000, and every time a water hydrant gets hit, just our luck. It's at night, and 80% of the time we haven't had any idea of who did it. So the insurance and having somebody else pay for hitting our water hydrant hasn't been that good this year. So luckily we do have this water M&E fund, and thanks to some changes of adding it to our property tax bill, we're actually collecting $20,000 to $25,000 more this year anyways. So with little and no effort. The motor vehicle license tax, we're adding $20,000 for salt contract purchase. So that combined with the 35 gives us the money to meet our minimum requirement. The local coronavirus relief fund, you have to spend that money or you have to give it back. So we're going to use it towards police, fire, dispatch wages. So $432,429 is being added to the local coronavirus relief fund. The safety service fund, I'm adding $22,500 for the cost of issuing the 5-year bonds for the communication system that we recently approved at the last meeting in 3 separate pieces of legislation. Good thing is we're not borrowing the whole amount. $608,000, I think, Chief, is what we're spending.
Correct.
And then we're adding $33,000 for something else that the chief found out having to do with AT&T and I don't know, you can explain that, Chief, but something we found out we needed on top of the 608,000.
Correct. What we found out was to add the third station so that in the event that we're using that third station could answer 911, the cost it's under $30,000, like 20-some thousand dollars, just to add that station to answer the 2 existing 911 calls. We toyed with not doing it, and myself, Lieutenant Yakupovich, and Chief Golden, we discussed it with dispatch, and that way it gives us, if we have a failure within the infrastructure within dispatch, we're not putting the burden of answering all the 911 calls on one dispatcher. We also felt this was an opportunity. We're in that room, and we're going to make it as comfortable for those employees as we can. They're in there for a long time, and we just felt this was an opportunity. So a little bit of that additional funds is for power stand-up desks and things of that nature. Now, I don't believe it's a $30,000 increase in total cost. I had overestimated the cost of radios, and I talked about that last time about if we have problems, we would have the funds to do it. Right now, we haven't run into any problems yet, so I'm expecting the total cost of the project to still be less than $608,000. And when we're all done,
Okay.
I'll report back with the total final cost of everything and the improvements. But that is a few months away.
Well, the good news is the extra 33,000 we're going to pay for in cash if we have to. So we're not going to borrow for it. And we're currently projecting $1,080,000 to come in as revenue for the Safety Service Fund, which would give us $300,000 as a ending balance in that fund. But to date, if you see the projections on the one-page spreadsheet, Safety Service Fund with the last 2 months being projected at -25 is going to collect 1.6 million. So that'll bring the ending balance to $900,000 in the Safety Service Fund. So that's a good thing. Money that could be used for future debt payments for a service department. And the last appropriation change was again adding the payoff of the old 2010 bond series and paying off the aerial tower should that be approved later on this evening. So that's all with 62. Let me know if you have questions.
Any questions on 62? Okay, if not, remember we have a budget meeting. Yes, I know it's 2 days before Halloween, so if everybody wants to come dressed up,
can you go over can you go over the departments? I'm sorry, that are going to be at that one.
Yes, for the Capitol. Yeah, because they can explain, like we do with the chief, with the aerial, we do with Mr. Nadovich, anyone who has a Capitol.
But do you know which ones are going to be they're not all going to be at that first one, are they?
No, I'll have to look at my email that I sent.
Okay, I'll check the email.
I don't have it at hand. I'll look at it again and resend it.
Okay,
so if there are no questions, you have 20 minutes.
Hey, Jan, one thing if I could, real quick.
Yes.
Can we, on your worksheet for the budget meetings on November 5th and November 12th, we have, I'm basically asking if you can put dispatch with police because it's the same department, so it doesn't make sense to have them on different days. So can we like swap dispatch with City Hall for those 2 dates? Would that be okay with everyone?
Yeah, that'll work. I was trying to make sure that we focus. They usually take the longest. Actually, Mr. Nadovich takes the longest, but yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
When I look at it, I'll put them together.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll probably only have the two of them then, because they do take a while. Anything else? Okay, I'll see you in 20. Don't forget to come back.